Well, hello and welcome again to our reading of Odyssey Book 1, and we are up to roughly line 325, and after being encouraged and emboldened by Athena in the form of Mentes, Telemachos goes back and faces the suitors, and he's now described as being Isothios. He is a man who is like a god. He went back immediately among the suitors. And the Oidos, the Periklutos Oidos, the very famous singer, was singing to them. So this is an imperfect despite the lack of an augment. So the very famous singer was singing to them, and they, now there's our verb here, this is actually a sonant N here, so this really is equivalent to something like this, heinto. So it's a third person plural from heimai, of sitting, and before the dental T, the mu, labial mu, is turned into a dental nu here. So so they were sitting, siope, in silence, akuantes, listening. And he was singing of the journey home of the Achaeans, and then a nice enjambment, the lugron. Lugron is a very strong word, baleful, unhappy, miserable, disastrous. So he was singing of the disastrous return home of the Achaeans. And then the ek Troyes really goes with that, but there is a comma there. So, return from Troy, which Pallas Athena, epiteletot from epitelemai, had laid upon them, had ordained for them, or had laid upon them, well, as they come from Troy. Or you can take the ek Troyes with the earlier bit. Now, we then Penelope now comes into the story, and she's on the next line here. So the very thoughtful Penelope, the daughter of Ikarios, genitive here, sunthete is from sun tithemai, which is to perceive in Homer, sun tithemai. So she perceived, or she was listening to him. So she, sorry, I should say that's a genitive of him after this bit here. So, so thoughtful Penelope, daughter of Ikarios, was perceiving, so was listening to the Thespin Oidan, the inspired song of him in her heart, huper oithen, that's that then from, and the huper oia is the upper rooms, or the upper room, which generally in the women's quarters. So the women are kept upstairs doing their various tasks and things, and from there she hears the singing. So then she descended on the high, well, it's literally a ladder, but probably a staircase might be more appropriate here. So she came down from her room, from her house literally, but from her room. She descended the high staircase. Uk oye, very important, she was not alone. Women are not allowed to be seen alone with men, so not alone, but in fact, also two attendants were following along with her. So along with her, two attendants were in fact following from Hepamai. And she, when she glorious among women, when she came to the suitors, in fact, she stood parastathmon. She stood accordingly, that for the ara, beside the stathmon, this is the pillar, literally of the thickly made roof, so of the well-made house, we'd say. Tegos is this is a genitive here, by the way, along with the poietoio, so this is made or constructed. Puka in the sense of compactly, so well made. Tegos is a roof. It's from the verb of covering, to cover something over. So it's often just the house here. So beside the pillar of the well-made house, and skomine, this is from the middle, from echo, of course, holding a lipara credemna, a thin veil, in front of her cheeks, holding a thin veil in front of her cheeks, and the amphipolos kedne. It's a female servant. It's got masculine because it's got two parts to it. It's amphi and polos, so but it is a feminine attendant. Kedne is something like, it's the etymology of this word's uncertain. It means something like kindly or thoughtful or trusty. So the trusty servant stood on each side for her. So her trusty servant each stood on one side and the other. This is very Greek expression, on each side. So a trusty servant stood for her on each side, and she, dakrusasa, shedding a tear, then she addressed the divine singer. O Phormios, Polaga alabraton thelkteria oidas. So, for you know, from oida, many other thelkteria, a lovely word, only occurs a couple of times in Homer. It means bewitching song. There's thelgo, to soothe, so a soothing song of mortals. So you know lots of soothing songs of mortals. The works of men and of gods, which the singers Clayusi celebrate. Sitting there, sing one of these then for them. And they, this is an imperative here, this is a third person plural imperative, let them drink their wine, siope, in silence. But cease from this song, this lugres, we saw the word above, this baleful, miserable, unhappy song. So in other words, she's saying, sing something a bit more pleasant. So cease from this baleful song, which continually tears my heart for me in my breast. Since penthos, grief, which is alaston. Now, this is an odd word to use here. It's etymologically it must be connected with, it's an alpha privative plus lanthano, so unforgettable. I can't get it out of my head. Since unforgettable pain, kath hiketot. This is from kata plus hikneamai, and malasta especially. Since unforgettable pain especially comes upon me, and for continually remembering my andros, my husband, I desire, literally, such a head, so noble a man, something like that. So so noble a face, perhaps, if you want to keep the kephale as head there. So noble a face. So continually thinking of my husband, I desire so noble a head, a face. Whose glory, so for glory of him, so whose glory, understand, is wide, kath helada, up and down Greece and in the middle of Argos. Now in Homer, in the Iliad, the Hellada generally denotes the northern, the parts of northern Greece in southern Thessaly, the domain of Peleus. In Hesiod, Hellada generally denotes Greece in general, And Argos in Homer generally used to denote all of the Peloponnesus, in fact, even though Argos is only one town there. And thoughtful Telemachos, and very interesting passage this one, thoughtful Telemachos said to her again in reply, "O my mother, why do you begrudge then this Erieros, this loyal or trusty singer, literally to turn wherever the mind for him stirs him?" So, to gladden, not to turn, sorry, this is terpain. So to gladden us wherever his mind might turn. It is not in fact, the singers are responsible. It's not the singers that are responsible or guilty, but Pothi, well, something like perhaps somehow Zeus is Aitios, is responsible, who gives to men who are grain-eating, so who gives to grain-eating men, just as he wishes, hekasto, to each man. And I might stop at that point.